Welcome to the CrossFit Canada podcast, sponsored by Affiliate VA Services, offering you professional and affordable admin support for your gym. And what we have as we tell the stories of Canadian coaches and affiliate owners, we also have our first official two-time guest, Mr. Peter Shaw.
Oh,
First
I'm honored.
You beat Doobie. He was up high in the power rankings for potentially being the first multi-guest or Carrie-Ann, but welcome.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be the first guest. Welcome back for round two.
Yeah. So we don't need to do the introduction because we've done that, but I feel like question of the day should still be done. Let's go. I think we talked ice cream last time, so let's go.
I think so.
Yeah.
And since we talked last time,
okay.
I got a Ninja Creamy.
Okay.
Amazing. Okay. But I won't distract you from the question, but I just wanted to let you know.
Well, I mean, Ninja Cream, yeah. That's a whole, maybe that needs to be its own podcast.
Yeah, we got to do its own thing.
Yeah. Go-to book that you would recommend to someone. And it could just be a go-to recommend to someone.
Yeah, the book I'm reading right now, Diabetes Code by
Jason Fung.
Yeah, I read the Obesity Code, and now I'm going through the Diabetes Code. Great book. Yeah, he does a really good job of just like describing that pathology, that disease in really layman's terms. So anyone who's looking to learn more about diabetes, which they should be if you're in the fitness business, fitness and nutrition, you should be looking to learn more about that. Go read that book. Yeah, it's easy read. It's like 250 pages max, I think, and fairly large font.
And a fellow Canadian from Toronto.
Canadian, yes, right? That's right, from Toronto.
And I think he has some lectures on the CrossFit YouTube page.
That's right. Yeah, from the old CrossFit Health days. They held a CrossFit Health conference at the games in, I want to say like 2018 or 2019, and they filmed a whole bunch of. They call them the Mesperts, right? They filmed a whole bunch of those guys doing full lectures. They got Jason Fung, Zoe Harcombe, Malcolm Kendrick, all these guys.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, that sets the tone for what we're going to talk about today. But continuing on that, my go-to book recommendation, I would say just taking in that theme is Tripping Over the Truth. But more discussing cancer, but both dealing with the idea of it being metabolic diseases, metabolic chronic diseases, kind of lifestyle induced. So, which brings us to what we're going to talk today is we're going to get into a deep dive and I would say answer everyone's questions, but there aren't any, about Metfix. So your new role. So tell us, like, do you have an official role with Metfix, like title and what is it? And then we'll just go in from there.
Yeah, I'm a head of education.
Cool. Okay.
So what I've been doing is helping Emily, Greg, Emily's husband, Bob Kaplan, take their massive brains and then take all this information and turn it into a 2-day course. Okay. And we just ran our first course a couple weekends ago now. So actually just the very beginning of June. So it's been 11 days.
Yep.
And that was our first go at it, and it was a huge success. So that's what I've been up to is taking all that information, distilling it down into a 2-day course, making it attractive to the coach, but also to the layperson who just wants to learn more about their own health, do a deeper dive. It's several layers deeper than superficial nutrition and exercise talk. We really dive into the biology, the cell biology, the nutritional biochemistry. At the deepest level, there's a couple lectures specifically geared towards that information. But then supporting those lectures are, how to apply it. Also, at the beginning of the weekend, we do a nice segue into sort of where have we come from, where are we going type of talk with what is Metfix and describing that to people. I've got a background in biology. I majored in biology and molecular and cellular biology in university.
Cool.
So it's funny. I never thought I'd use it.
Yeah, especially
but here I
going to
am.
CrossFit, right?
That's right. That's right. So it turns out to be pretty useful. So
very cool. So let's back up a bit. And I don't expect you to speak for either Greg or Emily, but let's give those, because I mean, it's sometimes like in the vacuum. I'm like, how do you guys not know about the Broken Science Initiative and what Greg's been doing and this and that? So maybe paint the picture for the tens of people listening about when Greg kind of got ousted from CrossFit, what he started doing to keep himself occupied and how it's led to this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll try to keep it short and brief, but
yeah,
you know, I mean, the story really starts from when Greg was suing the NSCA for publishing false data on the CrossFit injury rates.
Right.
They successfully sued them, and then eventually CrossFit settled once Greg had left the company. But I think that incident left Greg questioning the legitimacy of all scientific publishings.
Right.
And he started to explore and go upstream, and then he discovered that this was happening everywhere. Right? Peer review was a fraud, was a farce. Scientific misconduct was happening left, right, and center. Meanwhile, Emily Kaplan attended the first MDL1, which was held at the ranch, and that course was designed to expose MDs, doctors, to the level 1 kernel. And I had the pleasure and the privilege to actually work that course as a seminar staff. That first one, my wife was an attendee; she was a participant in the course, and so I've been following and staying close to the CrossFit health movement from that very first day. And Emily was an attendee at that course, and so that's how she essentially met Greg. And she was she's a journalist by trade, and eventually went the route of investigating scientific misconduct. And so naturally, these two people found each other. And once Greg left the company, this was a deep passion for the two of them. Greg's father, Jeff Glassman, was a huge spokesperson for conducting science properly. He's written books and tons of articles on what science is and what it isn't. And I think Greg moving upstream from the fraud that occurred out of commercial interest against CrossFit, what he found upstream was that there was actually a problem with how science was being conducted at the root. There's a problem with p-values, and there's just a general misunderstanding of what science is and what it isn't, which was very much in line with what his father had taught him from a young age. And so that became a passion of his, is to dig up what the root of the issue was. And along the way, Emily went down that journey with him, and they started the Broken Science Initiative.
Cool. And so when starting to make sure we define our terms and not lose people also. So when you say p-values, you're referring to predictive values. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes. But the funny thing about that is that they're actually not that predictive.
Okay.
And so without going into like broken science, like crazy deep, because this is stuff that warrants a deeper explanation. But on the website, we've published and written articles on p-values. You can certainly go there. But essentially, what a p-value is, I mean, people see it, right? When you learn about these things in middle school science, it's like, hey, how do I show that my hypothesis is true in my scientific experiment?
Okay.
Well, what everyone's taught is that you got to come up with a p-value that's less than 0.05. And that's going to tell you that the hypothesis is true. But it actually doesn't say that. What a p-value gives you is the probability that the data is true, given that the hypothesis is true.
Right.
But what we really care about is whether the hypothesis is true, given the data.
Right.
So it's a fallacy of the inverse, right? It's like the same thing as saying, hey, what's the likelihood that this elephant that you've got an elephant in front of you? What's the likelihood that that elephant has 4 legs? You're like, most elephants have 4 legs. That's highly likely. Okay, well, I've got an animal in front of you that has 4 legs. What's the likelihood that it's an elephant? Well, there's a whole bunch of different animals that have 4 legs. It could be a dog, could be a cat, could be a mouse, right? And so that's the fallacy of the inverse, is making that assumption that the p-value gives you the validity of the hypothesis when it's actually not true. And there's many people that make this false interpretation, including people in the scientific field, doctors, most people probably couldn't tell you what it actually means. So this is one small piece to the larger picture that is broken science, and what the Broken Science Initiative is intending to do. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate people. We're trying to educate people on what this stuff is, what it means, so that they can think more clearly.
So then Metfix is, I know I started by asking kind of about the Broken Science. Is Metfix a division of the Broken Science Initiative, or is it the practical application of, or how does then Metfix as its own entity fall into this?
That's a great way to think of it. It's the practical application of broken science, not broken science itself, but of everything that is broken and the things we learn about largely the medical sciences and academic sciences are pretty much the areas of science that are largely broken. The academic science is driven by publish or perish and peer review and all of the scientists that work for academic institutions. They want tenure, so they just continue to pump out these papers, right, at all costs, whether the data is right or not. And then you've got the medical field. They're motivated by a lot of the time by and influenced by this pharmaceutical industry and by money, right? So you've got these two industries, largely industry like the rocket industry, like think of like Elon Musk type of stuff, and Jeff Bezos. They're trying to send people to the moon and to Mars, etc. That type of science that doesn't have this issue, because typically they're not sending people up there if the math doesn't line up. But the problem with health is exactly what I talked about a second ago. And what Metfix is the answer to that. Is that we know that our health outcomes are by and large determined by the two independent variables of what you put in your mouth and what you did for exercise yesterday. Mm-hmm. The last month, the last year, the last decade.
Right. And
Metfix is the application of that knowledge. That we know that the biggest impact that you can have on your health outcomes is diet and exercise. That's what Metfix is.
And so to unpack a little bit more about like peer review, and not to make this about that, but very coincidentally, I think a good book for someone who's curious is actually Tripping Over the Truth.
Yeah, by Travis Christofferson.
Yeah, so it talks about Otto Warburg's theory that cancer is a metabolic disease versus a genetic disease. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is when you come in and make a prediction or a hypothesis like that, all the people who have done their whole lives work on the genetic side are now faced with their work being disproved. Yeah. So what they'll do is band together and say, hey, 100 of us are saying it's genetic versus one guy who's saying it's metabolic, therefore it's genetic. But meanwhile, I think what the anecdote is they had cancer cells in a petri dish that they had to swab with sugar every however many hours to keep them alive, so they could figure out what chemical could kill them. Yep.
I mean, for me, it's just the whole mechanism of positron emission tomography. Like PET scans, the way that you locate the cancer in your body when it's time to try to detect it is by giving you a dose of fluorescent glucose.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and wherever the sugar goes is where the cancer is.
Right. Because it's consuming.
Because it's consuming it. So for me, I'm just like, okay, well, that, you know, that makes total sense. But you know, you're exactly right, and that's the problem. That's the problem with science. It's a natural tendency. It's like human nature to want to defend your position,
Sure.
but it also has to be talked about so that people can try to look at things objectively.
Right. Right. And in a way, just saying like what's right or wrong, not with a value attached to it of like some sort of moral piece or whatnot, but just like, I guess I think of too, another analogy is one of my favorite lectures is when Greg does the basically whole level 1 in 1 hour at Reebok CrossFit 1 from many years ago. And he's explaining how, you know, work capacity works and intensity works. And then there was all these scientists, I think, from the military got together and they're like, hey, Greg, you know, we went in and like proved that what you're saying is right. And he's like, what are you talking about proving that it's right? You don't have to prove that it's right. The answer is right in front of us in the people in the CrossFit gyms.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it all starts with the empirical observation, right? The result. What are you seeing in front of you? Right? If you're seeing someone lose weight and their blood markers are getting better and they're getting stronger and they're getting faster, they're able to do things that they weren't able to do before. But then you have this paper that you hold up and you're like, well, it can't be true because this paper says that it's impossible to get fitter and healthier on a low carb diet. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's happening right in front of your eyes.
Right. So now, so then Metfix comes in. And so this has been, I guess almost like a culmination of Greg's like lifelong work, but it seems like it's really come together in the past, we'll say 2 years, maybe is when the things really started to take shape and culminate with the first foundation seminar that we can talk about. But what has that building of the organization been like from your involvement standpoint?
The building of the organization. Well, I mean, they started Metfix before I was there.
Right.
And so they knew that this was important work. Essentially, you know, the story is that people were begging Greg to fight chronic disease again.
Right.
You know, this is something that's missing from the space, is someone who's willing to stand up and fight against chronic disease and speak out about bad science and speak the truth and have the hard conversations about nutrition and the benefits of ketosis and what's actually happening in the body, and put a stake in the ground and actively defend those viewpoints and justified viewpoints, because the science is legitimate. And so that's where it started. Is people wanted to stand behind that, and so what we did was we started with the first 100 affiliates. Is before anything even happened. We opened application for 100 affiliates. We handpicked them based on experience and their devotion to the mission, and they've been standing by and waiting for a seminar. And the seminar, they had first dibs to the seminar, so we opened up to them, and we just did our first one, and they're all signed up, and they're going to filter through the seminars for the rest of the year. But the seminars are also, now that they're running, are open to everybody. So now affiliation is not just open to the first 100, it's open to everybody. We've even got affiliation open to Canada, UK, Australia, other European countries. And then the courses themselves are starting to fill up, and they're not just available to those 100 or people who are affiliates already. We kind of did things backwards, right? We started with the affiliate, and then we feed them the course. But we had all these people that were so dedicated, and they just wanted to be part of it, so we almost couldn't refuse them. And so now we're going the other direction, and we're saying, okay, come to the seminar. If you're going to apply for affiliation, you have to have done the seminar, and we're moving in that direction now.
Describe to me.
Hopefully the seminar is going to be coming to Europe pretty soon, Canada pretty soon. But as of now, it's just scheduled in the United States.
Okay. I mean, there is 10 times the people down there. So it's like
There's a lot.
Great
Totally.
enough people to start. And for those interested, it's like, it's worth a road trip. You know, the drive down to Columbus isn't too far for those who could have made it.
Yep.
So there was, speaking of, so the last one, the first foundation seminar was at the Rogue headquarters in Columbus. Looked like an incredible group. What was the collection of people in there like?
Oh, just the most passionate. Most passionate. Our first 100 affiliate owners, I mean, the vast majority of them are also CrossFit gyms. Yeah. Some not, but many of them, yes. And I mean, we come from the CrossFit world, so we know what that 10-year, 15-year affiliate owner looks like, smells like, feels like when you shake their hand and start talking to them, what they sound like. And it was a room filled with those people. They're completely dedicated to changing lives. The other way I like to describe it too is that, you know, this mission of fighting chronic disease and truly taking that torch and being leaders in the space, it takes a minute for you to get there as a trainer. When you're first moving into the training space, you know that's in the background, but really you're refining your skills and you're learning how to teach people movement. You're learning, you know, what methodology should I be using. Obviously, we all went to CrossFit, right? Greg's methodology at first, and so we started using that and refining our skills. And then, you know, years go by, year like 7, 8, 9, 10, you start seeing some of the effects you have on people. You're like, oh man, like I reversed this guy's diabetes. This person just jumped. I got like 10 or 12 people who never were able to jump 3 inches off the ground, and now they're doing like a 20-inch box jump. So that you sit back and look at bird's eye view. You're like, wow, like I can have a crazy impact on people's lives beyond the performance metrics. Beyond the performance, I can give people freedom, right? And it starts with health, and so then you start getting motivated by learning things like this, like what we're talking about. It's like what's truly affecting people's health outside the gym, because I only have them for 1 hour a day,
right?
And if I'm going to have an impact on their health, I need to start talking about the other 23 hours of the day with them deliberately all the time. Every time I have them, right? We've got a community of doctors out there and they're pigeonholed into meeting someone for like 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, once a year, twice maybe. But us as trainers, we see these people maybe daily for an hour. The potential there is huge.
Right.
And so, once you start to realize that the other 23 hours of the day actually matter more than the hour that they spend in the gym with you, that becomes your focus if your sole goal is to make them healthy.
Right.
And that's what Metfix is about. It's about using the fitness as a Trojan horse for talking about what really matters.
For sure. Yeah, catching. I always like to say to new folks, like, could be their first onboarding session or whatever that looks like, is I could write out the 10 general physical skills, and there's not one on there that someone would be like, no, I don't need that. But in the first conversation about getting them to join them, if you try to talk about those 10 general physical skills, you have a 10 out of 10 chance of having them not sign up.
That's right.
For that reason, right? And so
that's right. Yeah. So everyone who comes to the seminar and came to Rogue, everyone understands that concept because they've experienced it firsthand.
Right.
And what they're looking for is more knowledge. We know that in every profession, to be good at what you do, it starts with knowledge. And that's what these people are seeking. They're seeking more knowledge. Even if it doesn't necessarily change how they apply it, right? They might even know the answer to the question, but they don't have the confidence to say it to someone who needs the answer. what's the difference between Greg Glassman telling you to get your ass off the couch and eat less carbs and someone who just read off the carbs off the couch on a bumper sticker? What's the difference?
Right.
The difference is that you know that Greg knows what he's talking about, right? What's the difference between me telling you that you need Advil for your headache and my wife, who's a family doctor, standing right behind me, and she tells you that you need Advil for your headache? Who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to my wife because you know she knows more about this stuff, right? So it starts with the knowledge, right? And you can go 10, 12, 15, 20 layers deep on that stuff. And all that does is it gives you credibility. It gives you credibility when you can stand up and talk about and against the nonsense that's out there. And people will always have questions, especially people who are invested in their health. If you start training elderly, special populations, like anyone who's morbidly obese who needs to lose 200 pounds, like they're seeing their doctor regularly and they have tons of questions. If you don't have the answers to those questions, they're going to go find somebody else because they need the confidence to be able to trust you with their life. This course is going to provide that for trainers.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's not a one or the other, like a CrossFit or a Metfix, because it's like, what I'm guessing too is that the folks who were in that first 100 and then at the seminar, they're probably renegade type folks, not in that they're kind of swimming upstream, but they're not the type of people to ask permission to help.
Absolutely. And no, you're totally right about the level one. Like anyone who's looking to get into fitness and open that door for the first time, the level one is like the entry point. It has to be, right? If you're going to be in the gym teaching people about movement, you got to learn the movement, right? You got to learn the movement. But I would even say that's a great first stepping stone and something that you should strive to do before coming to our seminar. Not a full requirement, but if you're interested in starting to train people and charge people for fitness training, the level one is the way to go. And then once you start to realize like, oh, maybe I'm going to need more information on nutrition, then you got to start looking over here at the Metfix seminar. The way I looked at it was, at the level one, we've got a single, even though that nutrition is the base of the pyramid, Greg said the foundation of his theoretical hierarchy of the development of the athlete's nutrition.
Yeah.
But out of a need to spread the course the way that it has to be done at the level one, there's only one lecture. You spend a very small portion on nutrition, even though it is the foundation of the entire pyramid above it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be done that way just because you got to go through so many movements. There's just a requirement to learn certain material. Well, with the Metfix seminar, I inverted that.
Right.
We've got a single lecture on exercise, and then the rest is founded in nutrition. We do movement. We move around at the seminar. We do some workouts. But in terms of the content you're learning with the lectures, we're inverting that to bring a focus back to the base of the pyramid.
How much, not to derail that, but speaking of specifically, how much is the exercise component of the weekend a community builder rather than we're here to work out?
I mean, I think anytime you exercise with a group of people, it's a community builder, right?
Well, and they're in, So
right. So it's certainly a component. It's certainly a component. But we actually do 3 workouts on day one. So that's kind of cool. You never thought you'd go to a nutrition seminar and do 3 workouts on day one, right?
Yeah.
But we do those 3 workouts and we do them in silos, deliberately, in very short exposures, 30 to 40 minutes, so that we can talk about them in the exercise lecture the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can talk about the physiology and the biochemistry and the stimulus, and it's a cool structure. Mm-hmm. You can experience it, and then you can talk about the theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Like what I'm hearing then, and as we like unpack this, because it's not worth either of our times to try to sit and like explain why Metfix is not CrossFit and why they're not in competition with each other. It's because if you sit them and take them both at face value, they're not. And what's coming to mind for me is that if you have a coach or you are a coach who takes the level 1 and then maybe the level 2, then they say, okay, I want to start putting in some nutrition coaching. Where do they go? Generally, I would say 9 out of 10 trainers would then take the precision nutrition certification. I believe it is not just a certificate, right?
The precision nutrition level 1, which I have done.
And it's truly a great course. And even that, you're like, okay, it's about the person and coaching the person, not the science as much. But it seems like to me, it's like, okay, well now Metfix could be something for a coach or trainer who wants that precision nutrition, but have it to be a lot more robust.
Totally. And we're also talking, yes, a lot more robust and more up to date. I know that precision nutrition tries to, and not to compare directly to them because I haven't seen their updates.
Yeah.
But when I took the course, there's a lot of, there's a lot of fluff in there surrounding calories in, calories out. We know, coming from under Greg, right, and what he was teaching, and all the science behind low carb, we know that works. We know the reduction of carbohydrates works for reversing disease. And so we plant our flag there and we explain the mechanisms behind that. And we talk about some stuff that people don't know a lot about. People are really familiar with the hormonal influence on carbohydrates and how insulin triggers the storage of fat and glucose and nutrient ingress into the cell, but not a lot of people know about reactive oxygen species. And so this is where we're super blessed with a guy like Bob Kaplan. Obviously we've got Greg's methodology and his vision and his brain, and we got Emily who's another visionary, very like incredible person, such a hard worker and just a go-getter. And her background in investigative journalism has it's crazy to see her insight into all of this stuff. And her husband Bob, who actually used to work for Peter Attia and was the head researcher for Peter Attia and his podcast. He actually helped upstart the Drive, Peter Attia's now famous podcast, right? And so now Bob works for us at Metfix, and Bob has been paying for years close attention to the ROS, reactive oxygen species theory of obesity. And what we've done is we've taken that theory, combined it with the insulin carb theory, and this is what we're teaching at the Metfix seminar. And so it takes basically the first principles of biochemistry and cellular biology, stuff that we know is actually happening in the cell, and we tie it directly into what we're seeing manifest at a population level with disease.
Yeah. So as Greg says, then when you feel like you've mastered the basics, go back to the beginning and master them with more detail, or look at them with more detail.
Yep.
What would be the because I guess, or let's look at it a different way, as I make this a way too long word, is you go to the level 1, you learn all the methodology, but the first thing you learn is that if you ever tell someone when they ask you what CrossFit is, that it's constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity, that it's a terrible answer. Yeah. So knowing all this stuff that someone could learn at a Metfix seminar, what is the person on the street conversation about like the basics of Metfix, if that question makes sense?
The basics of Metfix is that you're never going to do anything better for your health than lowering your carbohydrate reduction and paying attention to your nutrition.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a simple, like,
that's the pitch, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you? Are you interested in exercising? Great. What's the most convenient thing for you? Okay, you're going to bike to work? Perfect. Let's keep talking about diet.
Right.
That's the pitch. That's the basics. and it always has been that way, right? And what we know about constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity is that it's the optimal way to gain work capacity and gain fitness.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the only way. Certainly not the only way. But what we do know for sure is that the only way that you're gonna stave off chronic disease, and if you're gonna move your health markers in the right direction, is by getting off the carbohydrates and the processed food and the seed oils,
Mm-hmm.
and start eating a more natural diet that's high in protein, high in fat, moderate in protein, low in carbohydrate.
Right.
That's the pitch. That's the 2-second pitch.
Yeah. And I think like what's exciting about this that I'm gonna guess, because like, it's like here we are on a podcast contributing to the noise, but there's so much noise just in the CrossFit ecosystem now. A lot of it is largely related to the CrossFit Games.
Yep.
There's not a lot of productive information in regards to the practical application of CrossFit in the affiliate level.
Mm-hmm.
But it just sounds like to me like something like Metfix is a program that could be offered to someone on the street who's not ready to come to the gym 5 days a week. And when I say come to the gym, like exercise intensely 5 days a week,
Yep.
it's like, okay, I might get them 2 days a week or 1 day a week to start, but I now have a program and a curriculum that I'm going to use to interact with them daily in a way that I can make my own. Am I right in that? Or
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's all about how you apply it. And I mean, this is the same thing with CrossFit as we know it. If you're interested, even if you're interested in making someone better at push press, like they're only going to come in as often as they can. You're not going to turn them away when they can only come in twice a week, right? You maybe encourage them to do more, but you're certainly right that the Metfix program that I run at CrossFit 1855, I run a Metfix program in this facility.
Yeah.
And my members come 1 to 2 times a week.
Right.
But they come 1 to 2 times a week. The average age is like 65, 70 years old. And we're talking about nutrition every single day. And I'm opening their eyes to the realities of it, and not just telling them they should eat this and eat that. I'm educating them on why. And that's a major difference too, is even with the exercise stuff, we all know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. In this space, we all know what to do, but it also helps to know why. Because this is also going to help when you're trying to get people to come into your gym who aren't already motivated to get fit and just want to be told what to do. Think of every person that's not coming to your gym. This is the sick population.
Right.
Everyone that's not coming to your gym, these are the 80% of people that are dying from chronic diseases, preventable chronic diseases. How do you get those people into your gym? Right? I remember Greg talked a long time ago at the Whistler affiliate gathering, and there's a presentation that he gave, and he talked about jumping the chasm. Right? There's this like concept in technology adoption in a population of like jumping the chasm. You've got your early adopters and you've got your mainstream adopters.
Right.
And jumping the chasm is like a huge challenge. It can make or break the success of a technology and whether or not it's going to, it's going to be adopted by everybody. And I think that fitness in general, and CrossFit included, it's like you're stuck in this early adopter phase where everyone who comes to your gym like already knows that they need and want fitness. It's like, how do you get it to the general pop? Because that general population, right, the mainstream, they're the sick ones.
Mm-hmm.
That is the 80% of people that are dying from chronic disease. And if you can't explain to them why, because they're pre-contemplative, they don't even understand that. Maybe some of them understand that they have an issue. And maybe some of them have been told that they need to exercise and they need to eat better. But what does that even mean?
Right.
They're not making the decision. It's not enough for them. They need to know why a lot of the time. And so, and sometimes it takes them asking the question. Sometimes it takes you telling them the answer. But a combination of those things ultimately, I think, is how you get to these people. And so once you develop that trust, because people can tell that you have the background and you can speak on these topics and you can parlay with medical folk, right, in the interest of the client, then you're going to get more people like this who really need it. But you're totally right. This is like the program is heavily focused on the base of the pyramid. It's definitely focused on nutrition. And so how that manifests itself is, I mean, at this point, it remains to be seen. We got just over 100 affiliates who are experimenting currently. And we know, you and I, as former CrossFit, I mean, for me, I'm a former CrossFit affiliate owner. The majority of people coming into the gym are just talking about the fitness. They're thinking about the fitness, and it's hard to get the nutrition side into them. So this is we've all heard the old adage of bringing the salt shaker back to the center of the table, and this is what we're trying to do in the fitness space, in the health space.
What's very interesting about that to me is I think of every conversation I've ever had, and it's interesting how many people don't want to say it's not about losing weight. And it's like, regardless of why, but so then what they go to next is they say, it's like, I'm not really concerned with the scale or losing weight, because they don't want to make it about vanity, which is totally fine. But then they say, it's like, I'm just interested in improving my health. So they kind of set they load the gun for themselves, and it's like, okay, well, now you're saying we can improve your health, and here's how we can do it. So talk us through because you kind of alluded to it on your first guest appearance, but talk us through your program that you run at 1855, kind of macro, like what does it look like, how many days per week? And then what does a session look like?
Yeah, so right now it's 5 days a week. I started this program the same way I started my seniors program at my old gym. Is I just started bringing my grandma to the gym and training her for free every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. And then eventually people catch on. They're like, hey, can my grandma join you? And then I'll take two. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should make a membership for this thing. And then, create a membership because a couple other random people want to take part. And then, soon you're doing it once every week and then twice every week. Now we're up to 5 days a week. We've been running it for about a year and a half.
Okay.
It runs at 10:30 in the morning. I don't discriminate based on age, but largely because it's 10:30 in the morning, it's a lot of retired folk. Lots of people who are interested in the program are people who had never worked out before in their life. Some people, a couple people that work shift, or they've got flexible remote work where they can come in and they can do their thing. But definitely, it's a population of people who they either have chronic disease, or they realize that in their age, it's important to try to stave that off for as long as possible. And coming to our program is going to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the class, I mean, we do constantly varied functional movement at high intensity, but the workouts, I mean, I program for the best and scale for the rest. So when you go to the website, right, the people from a work capacity standpoint, they don't have tons, right? If we're going to compare to the rest of the fit population. So that the fittest athlete hitting the workout on my website, and it's going to look, to you, it's going to look like a scaled workout. For them, it's a hard workout. But I'm totally focused on consistency. A lot of these individuals are nervous about working out just in general. So it's a win if they show up and I can get them to move, their shoulder overhead with a 2-pound plate a few times, right? And that's the name of the game. Every class starts and finishes, or just starts or finishes with some nutrition, a little bit of talk about education on chronic disease. we talk about theory, we talk about the practical side, we talk about linking those two things, we talk about recipes. So on the Metfix website, we've got something called the Daily Fix, where every single day we post a workout, we post a low carb keto recipe, and we post we call it the belly body brain. And then the brain is like something to think about. It's an article that gets you thinking about anything that we talked about here, or sometimes there's articles about AI and, you know, things that are happening in pop culture but relate to science. And so that's what I do on my website too. I usually grab the workouts, scale them down a little bit. I grab the recipes, I post them on the website and try to get feedback from people on the recipes. I always check in whether they're trying the recipes out. Tons of people try them, tons of people love them. And then the articles I usually tailor to my population. So things that I base it off of things that we're talking about in the class, and I keep them interested about learning more. And the whole program revolves around that. It's, you know, everything's included in that hour that people come in. I talk to them a little bit before, a little bit after if needed. Like today, I told you that I had a new client who came in and she confessed to me that she's a little bit newer. And so we were due to connect on this stuff anyway, but I just had a bit of free time, and we talked, and she's got type 2 diabetes. And one of her goals is to get off her metformin, get off some of her other medication that she has to treat that. So we had a long conversation about, you know, her diet, and she told me what she ate, and I gave her advice on these slow changes and where we're going with those changes and why, right? The why is important because now she starts to understand and trust that I'm making those right decisions for her. And hopefully I'm going to get some buy-in from her, and we're going to change her life.
That's awesome. And especially like starting with the thing that's important instead of making it as an aside, right? Like because it needs to be, it sounds like from my perspective, it needs to be what it's going to be. And that's the sense of, if nutrition is the base of the pyramid, this is where we need to start in our education, but this is where we should start every day if we're going to discuss that. And then and then apply it and move our bodies and then finish off. So how much do you get people talking about the recipes as well, or trying them, or what?
I always have a small little talk that I'll give. So I always have a bit of a plan. And usually it's just what's like rolling on and up in here, right? I'm like, let's talk about this today. But often I'll be like, hey guys, did you check out the recipe? Like once a week at least, I'm like, which recipe did you try today? Which recipe did you try today? And and inevitably within the class, like, you know, not everyone's trying the recipes, but they try them once in a while. But there's always one person. And so it sparks a conversation about cooking in general, and sometimes deeper conversations about what to eat get sparked from that. So it's just a conversation starter. It's a prompt to get you into the weeds there and get people comfortable with talking about nutrition at that level. And then from there, more information can be given if it's desired and if it's needed. Today, as an example, you know, I think a lot about, you know, being a biologist and having studied, like, you know, a little bit on like evolution and all this stuff. And we're familiar to this. Obviously, Greg has exposed all of us to those ideas, you know, especially through, like, you know, the early days, talking a lot about the paleo diet and the idea of hibernation, and how our current food environment essentially puts us into a perpetual metabolic state of hibernation.
Yeah.
Right. And you think of, so that was the topic today. That was what we're talking about. Hey guys, think about our food environment. What's hibernation? What does that mean? And we talked a little bit about bears. What do bears eat in the fall to get ready for the winter? Well, they increase their fruit intake, and they increase like their nuts and seeds intake.
Right.
So what do you have there? You got, for us, what is that in the processed food? It's seed oils and sugar.
Right.
Right. And what the seed oils do is the seed oils, they keep your satiety low. Right? They keep your satiety low, and then combined with the sugar, it keeps the insulin high. So you just continue to store that food. So you're always hungry. So you're always eating, and your insulin's up. So you just continue to store. Fructose does the same thing. Fructose lowers your energy levels, right, by depleting ATP levels in the liver, and makes you feel as a whole system, because you've got a giant organ that's nutrient or ATP deplete. It makes you feel like you're lacking energy. And so what do you need to do to get energy? You got to eat more food. So this is the trigger for hibernation. Fructose also uniquely triggers de novo lipogenesis in the liver. So it's like increasing fatty liver. Right? This is the same thing that ducks do before their big migration down south, right? Like foie gras. Doobie would tell you about that, right? You got fatty liver, right? Yeah. Foie gras is like the ducks just eat a whole bunch of fruit and seeds before their migration. And they purposely take a fatty liver so they can like fuel their migration instead of putting fat on the outside where it's going to weigh them down.
Right.
We're just making human foie gras all the time by having like ridiculous amounts of sugar, ridiculous amounts of seed oils. So this was the topic. This is me talking at the whiteboard. Get some conversation going, right? Keep it concise. Generally, I try to keep it fairly concise, and then see if it sparks any interest of like a deeper dive. If someone like asks a question, then I'll go into another layer deep, and then, usually cut it off and then circle back in the cool down. Right? Hey guys, let's get moving. I want you to think about this during the warm up. Maybe I have a couple one-on-one conversations about it, and then you always have your 10 minutes at the end for a cool down. If you've got a well-planned class, everyone's stretching, everyone's cooling down. Hey guys, remember that thing we talked about? Right?
Yeah.
I had a question from this person during the warm up, and we talked about this, right? And it's just a really cool way to like embed it into your training practice.
Well, and it's interesting, like back to that, like workout and community is like, it's a community builder. So you can make nutrition a community builder as well, or have them two paralleled in. And then, knowing like even in a level 1, level 2 lecture setting, the key is to like, the question is asked, repeat the question back so that we can both confirm that I'm on the same page, but that so everyone else can hear it, because they probably have the same question as well. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of like little by little, it sounds like, removing these walls that is nutrition and making it accessible to everyone. And even if we look at like, counting macros or zone as like the overhead squat, well, you're from a nutritional standpoint, you're probably starting with like a box or a squat to target, which could be remove one thing or eat more vegetables or something.
Totally. Yeah. And that's from the practical standpoint, right? Like even this individual who came up to me at the end of today with the type 2 diabetes, and we're talking about the theory about it, but I'm like, hey, this is where we're going. This is the idea behind it. She's like, okay, I get it. I understand. Like, what do I need to do? I'm like, hey, listen, it's actually super easy. You don't have to do much tomorrow. It's like, all I want you to do is for this week, that one bagel that you have for breakfast, I want you to get rid of that. I want you to have 2 or 3 eggs in the morning, put some berries on the side of your plate, eat that for a week, and we come back, we make a different change if you think that tastes good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Right? It's it. And we know that we know, but the reason, why did I get the buy-in? Why did I get the buy-in? It's because I took the time to sit down with her and explain why this is important. Right? Mm-hmm. And so every time she's eating that, she's thinking about that. Like, this is good for my metabolism for these reasons. Like this, I got it. And it's a motivator, right? Because especially when you're making those changes, initially that can be uncomfortable. You want to get to a place where your body's at homeostasis and you don't have to think so much about making these nutritional changes. But when your body's just running on carbohydrates, you get cravings, your energy deplete, all your energy is being stored in fat and locked up in your adipose tissue. So you naturally get these cravings, and then you feel like it's a willpower thing. Yeah. So she said that to me. She's like, I don't have a lot of willpower. I said, it's not your willpower. It's your metabolism. Your metabolism is creating these cravings. And yes, we're going to do a slow titration off of carbohydrates, bring the fat and the protein back in, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable for, a week or two weeks that when we make a change, but I promise you, like, if you can get through that short term, we make the right choices in the long term, you're not going to have to think about it almost at all.
Right. Well, and then, yeah, that's cool. And it's like, like I said, I don't want to in any way devalue the Metfix program by saying this, but it just sounds like a way better nutrition program to offer in conjunction with a CrossFit affiliate, in the sense that like it just complements what's already happening in an affiliate already. It's just looked at in a completely different way.
Yep. 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 It's metabolic fix.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to fix your metabolics? It's going to be the fuel you put into your body. It's the food, right? You're going to be able to enhance that with exercise, and we know what the optimal exercise is to do.
Sure.
Right. So you do that on top of that, and you're going to be extremely healthy. But none of it matters if you're not paying attention to the nutrition.
Right. So what, besides everything, what excites you about this just upcoming summer and year? Especially, I think you guys have the second seminar coming up in Utah, right? So
yeah, it's coming up at the end of the month in Utah. That's going to be amazing. After that, we're going to Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is going to be amazing because it's the birth of Greg's methodology, and in the first CrossFit gym where he started out his training journey, etc. So that'll be cool to go back there. I mean, honestly, what excites me about it is just getting this information out to people. Like, obviously, I'm passionate about it. I'm into it. I think that these concepts, at first, it's like anything, learning something new. It feels clunky sometimes for the trainers, and maybe even they're a little bit nervous about coming to the seminar and learning some of this hard science of the biochemistry is probably specifically what makes people nervous. But the inspiration behind the education can motivate people to dig another layer deeper within the seminar, after the seminar. And this is, and the exposure, the repeated exposure will get into people's heads. The trainers will learn this stuff. It's not difficult. It seems difficult because there's a bunch of words you never heard before, maybe. Yeah. But it's not. But the concepts are not hard to understand, right? And once you get it, and once it clicks, it'll really enhance your communication with your clients on that journey to health, for sure. So I'm excited to expose people to that. I think as teachers, like we're teachers at heart. We're educators. Right. You love showing something to somebody they think is impossible, and they walk away either having it locked up here or physically knowing how to do it. Right? It's learning new skills and acquiring new knowledge it's exciting, helping people down that road. So that's what I'm most excited for is you get a whole bunch of new material. People are really excited about it. They want to come and learn, and I'm going to be ready to help them learn it.
That's cool. And it's like not enough people pursue the level 3 because they're maybe overwhelmed by the challenge. But to me, it's like you'd understand the value that the level 3 brings in the continuing education units that are required outside of it to keep going. And then what it actually does is, ironically enough, by becoming or getting closer to being an expert in CrossFit, you're actually opening yourself inversely to having to take in more outside information and just start to discern it a little bit more and more. And so I liken it to this. And like I said, is if people only got their information from social media, they would be pulled into a this or that conversation, CrossFit or Metfix. But what I'm hearing is like someone goes to Metfix to a foundation seminar, it could actually be the thing that could reignite their CrossFit fire because they have a whole new opinion of it, a whole new way to reuse the tools that they already have.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely will reignite your passion for the mission. That is 100%.
And that, if anything, is a good way to end it. So 3, 2, 1.